So when Joe first asked me to come and speak, because I know that this is a business networking, I was a little apprehensive. Like, Joe, I wrote a book on mind-body training and relationships, and you want me to speak at a business networking event? So I was a little hesitant until he pulled out his iPhone, and then he showed me his Blackboard, which is a lecture that he gave at the Executive MBA program at INSEAD, which actually talked about the feminine attributes. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, they're teaching this in business school now. Then I felt a little more encouraged to open up and come here. So I want to open up our today's talk with a simple question. In your opinion, who do you think is the most influential leader of all time known in human history? Any thoughts? Let me add another layer of a question there. Who do you think is an influential leader that actually integrated feminine attributes to his leadership style and his message? Any ideas? Gandhi? That's a good one, yeah. I'm going to say Jesus Christ. I'm not here to talk about religion, but I think that it's an undeniable fact that Jesus has made a huge impact in the Western world, history of the Western world, and possibly the entire world. What was so unique about his message and his style is, in my opinion, that the heart center, the feminine aspect, was fully integrated into his, not only his leadership, but his message. So here I am, to talk to you about what are the feminine attributes. There's a lot, of course, that I can cover, but today I'm going to just talk about 3 of them. The first is the feminine is intuitive, while the masculine is empirical. So the intuition is a sense of knowing in the body that can't be explained, logically explained or understood. Oftentimes, unfortunately, this kind of intuition is poo-pooed and kind of disregarded as mere superstition or woo-woo nonsense by especially the data-driven empiricist types. This is an unfortunate example of how the logical mind shuts us down of being able to access something that's actually a greater knowledge that we have access to. Einstein actually had said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, while the logical mind is its faithful servant. But unfortunately, we created a society where the faithful servant now is honored, and the intuitive gift, the sacred gift, is completely forgotten. What Einstein is saying here is that it is the intuition that gives us access to what is greater, what the conscious mind can't understand. Scientists have also discovered that in any second that we're processing information, our conscious mind can only process about 8 bits of data per second, while the unconscious mind, the senses that we're actually receiving and processing 18 million bits of data per second. So you can see this disproportion of what's available to us to what we're actually consciously understanding. So what we think we know and see through empirical data, it's a minute fraction of what we're actually capable of tapping. Now, in order to tap the intuitive mind, your mind has to be open to it. If it's full of data and ego, you can't receive this sacred gift. The mind has to be open, humble, and receptive to be able to receive the intuition. And that's why mindfulness practices is one way to actually clear the mind to be able to receive intuition. The second is that the feminine is emotional, while the masculine is logical. Now, especially in professional settings, often the emotions are considered unprofessional, and that there's no place, and especially in the corporate world, for emotions to show up. But there's a case that Dr. Sachs, Oliver Sacks, he's a famous neuroscientist based here actually in New York City. He talked about a successful lawyer that he came across. This lawyer got into a bad car accident and damaged a part of his brain, namely the amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain. And what happened to this doctor after a few months of recovery, he went back to work thinking and seeming that his brain functions were completely attacked, only to return to him a few months later saying he could logically analyze the pros and cons of any case that came his way, but he couldn't figure out how to move forward. He couldn't make a decision. So through this, Dr. Sachs was able to understand that ultimately human decision is emotional. It's not logical. And in fact, logic is what justifies this emotional decision that we make. So, in my opinion, somebody who is not in touch with their emotional part is incapable of really truly making a good, effective decision. And therefore, in my opinion, less capable of being a successful, effective leader. The third is that the feminine is nurturing while the masculine is inspiring. So the masculine attributes of leadership is able to inspire us to do things, break through inertia, and create that momentum to break ground and get things started. But it's actually the feminine aspect of nurturing that it takes whatever resources that are available to transform them into consistent progress and growth. So you see this in the startup world where you have these inspiring, charismatic leaders that come and they're able to rally people to their cause no matter how ludicrous or crazy it might seem in the beginning. But after a little while, once the company hits stable ground and the concept is proven, usually those startup leaders are then replaced by a different kind of manager. The type of manager with more feminine attributes, I would argue, that is able to nurture the resources of the company to ensure consistent growth for the company. So I'm not here to argue about whether the feminine and masculine is superior to the other. Just as Joe said, it's needed together. One can't exist without the other. But one of the truth is the fact that we have to deal with is that our school systems, professional training, or at least most professional training, and even the corporations are set up to reward and cultivate and encourage the masculine aspects, the logical, the skill sets, whereas there are very few areas where you can actually really cultivate the feminine attributes that we're talking about. So then how do we cultivate these feminine attributes? There's a number of practices, mindfulness, meditation being one I just mentioned, but another one that I would like to talk about is an alignment of the three brains. So coherency between the three brains. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the three brains. If not, I'm going to touch upon that. So when people think about the brain, they usually think about the head brain, right? But neuroscientists have now discovered that the heart and the gut have complex neurons and synaptic nerves that are capable of making independent decisions without the brain. So basically, we have two other brains in our body that are making decisions for us. Now, imagine three brains, three-headed monster, all going in different ways, right? And that's how we operate oftentimes. So coherency between the three brains is one way of achieving this feminine and masculine balance within ourselves. Let me just touch upon the different aspects of the three brains so we can have a better understanding of what I'm talking about here. So the head brain is the logical, the super logical mind. So a person led with the head brain is analytical, very sharp, intellectual people, and they love to gather knowledge and information and data. They're planners, they're the strategists, the tacticians. The head brain is where you figure out how to do things. The gut brain is where your instincts lie, passion and drive lie. So here is the warrior culture, the warrior ethos comes from the gut. They're bold and courageous, and they're able to break through no matter what the obstacles and challenges are, and that's a gut-based person. The third, and these first two are actually masculine modes, if you see. One is super logical, and the second one is a little bit of brute force. The third is the heart-based person. So the heart-based person is those who are emotionally connected. And the primary concern of the heart is actually connection to others. This is a typically feminine mode. There's a lot of biological factors that I could get into, which I'm not going to get into now, about the brain and how the hormones released in our bodies, that the feminine or women have more of a tendency to want connection. But there needs to be the balance between the two. And now, if you're a human being, we all have all three brains, but we have a default mode. Most corporate executives fall into, senior executives, corporate executives fall into the head brain person. They're strategic, they're logical, they prepare for their meetings, they prepare for life. And once they actually have a plan, they drum up the willpower within, they're disciplined to execute on their plan. Oftentimes, they don't really check in with their heart. They're not really connected to their heart. Then there's the entrepreneurial type people who are, they just get started. And They kind of figure out things along the way, how they're going to do things, and maybe make some plans along the way. Again, often these type of people forget to connect to why they're doing it, their heart, the meaning of why they're doing what they're doing. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek's work. Have any of you guys heard of Simon Sinek? Start with Why. Great book. He talks about, he's a successful advertising executive. You know that. He's a very successful advertising executive who found himself completely broken and demotivated. He just lost his mojo. He couldn't go on anymore. And his whole book.
Business has that effect on people.
Exactly. The ups and downs, and he just found himself broken. And he talks about the reason is because he lost his why. And I would say he lost his heart, or he lost the feminine aspect, getting in touch with the feminine aspect of him. Now, Stephen Pressfield is another author. He wrote a book called The Warrior Ethos. He was a former Marine, a big macho guy, but he actually talks about, he starts his second book though, The Warrior Ethos, with 2 chapters on the feminine aspects. It's a book about warrior mentality and warrior mindset, yet the first 2 chapters are about the feminine aspects. Both authors agree that the feminine comes first. Your heart and your emotions come first, and fail to do so at your own peril. So you might be thinking here like, okay, I got that, I got the 3 brains, but how do I apply that to my daily life? I'm sure that being January and all, that many of you went through some kind of goal setting exercise as to your 2018 plan or maybe your 5-year plan. I was asked to do this with my coach as well, but she gave me 4 specific criteria to do this. So this is the first time I did it this way. And the criteria were, first, that it must be binary. So it's yes or no. There's no question whether I achieved the goal or not. The second is that all smaller goals automatically fall under it as an inevitable event that would happen if I achieved this larger goal. And the later 2 were, it had to be in alignment with my personal values, or my soul's desires, if you will. And the last one is, if I think of this goal, it has to light me up. Now, I've done a lot of goal setting exercise. In fact, I do this every year and probably on a weekly basis. But I've always done usually pretty much the first criteria of achieving a specific goal under binary measures. And maybe the second to figure out what projects could support that to get that goal. But I really never stop to think about, is this really aligned with my values? Does it really light me up and get excited to talk about, or to execute on these projects or these goals? And I realized something when I was going through this exercise this time around. I thought to myself, well, no wonder I never really followed through with any of these goals that I set, because my heart wasn't really in it. It was my head saying, well, it would be nice to do this, but my heart wasn't in it. So I'd invite you maybe this year to take a look at the goals that you've set for yourself this year and check in with yourself. Have you balanced the masculine and feminine aspect, the logical, the rational aspect, the numerical, data-driven aspect? 2, is your heart in it? Is it aligned with your personal values? So that I would say is one way of doing it. The other thing, I might actually ask my husband to come up and lead us in a little exercise, is that the feminine is embodied. So the masculine is more focused towards the external, so data, action, and doing. The feminine is more embodied, emotional, and inward looking. But as a leader, we need to have both. We're encouraged to do all the external stuff, but as a leader who's balancing the both, I think learning how to get embodied and centered in yourself is a key quality for us to have. And this is a really simple exercise. It takes like a few minutes that you can do in any setting. That you can fully get into your body and become present. So I'm going to ask my husband, John, do you mind doing that? Is that everybody exercise?
Sure.
There.
Hi guys, I'm John.
So he's a man that has the feminine attributes completely integrated into his leadership style.
Work in progress. So just going on what Suki talks about, it's like, so if we had said to you, get embodied, how would you go about doing that? Right? Most of us don't have a clue. Okay, how do I get in my body? How do I get centered? Right? We don't have a pathway in. How many of you feel like if you were more centered, or you had the ability to get centered in really challenging, difficult situations, that would be a benefit to you? Do you guys agree? Would that be helpful? How many find that you come into a situation where you're off balance and then wind up making decisions from that place, and sometimes it's not the best decision, or you felt like you weren't bringing your full self to that situation? Anybody have that experience? Okay, cool. Do you guys want to learn how to do that quickly?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so this will take us 2-3 minutes tops. And once you practice this, I learned this from Richard Straussy from the Straussy Institute, who's an Aikido black belt. So we took these principles and I practice them daily. And so if I get on the elevator on the first floor and I get off the 10th, I can get centered in 10 floors. That's kind of like my go-to. So it's not something where it takes 20 minutes and sometimes you have to meditate for an hour and do all your, chanting or reading, whatever it is. This is instant. So what I'm gonna have you do is just stand up really quick. And so first what I want you to do, I'm gonna walk you through each of the 4 steps. I'm gonna walk you through each step. I want you to imagine that there's a little hook at the top of your head and it's slowly being pulled up. So you're gonna stand straight and imagine that your head is being pulled up towards the ceiling. Now, if we go too much, and I walk into a room like this, what do you think if I walk into a room like this? What's your first judgment? Ego, right? Just the tilt of my head. If I walk into the room like this, what do you think? Timid. Just the simple movement of my head. I walk in and you're like, oh, timid, oh, ego. Our brains instantly read nonverbal communication, right? So the first thing we want to do is, when our head is lifting towards the ceiling, we want it to be even. And basically what we're doing is looking to create some space in your vertebrae, okay? And this to me is when someone is really elongated, there's a sense of dignity. There's a self-respect that naturally gets read from other people, okay? So as you're feeling your head being connected and moved up towards the ceiling, just imagine your body, your lower part of your body, dropping down to the earth. So like your legs are a little heavier. Don't lock your knees, so little bent knees, right? So if I lock my knees, I'm like frozen. So just gently bend them slightly, okay? Then what I want you to do is, I want you to slowly rock forward and back. And I want you to start to notice where your relationship to gravity is. And I want you to start to find a space where you feel totally aligned with gravity. So now if I'm in a room and I'm leaning back, and I'm on my back heels, there's a sense that I'm a little defensive, or I'm not really engaged, or I'm a little scared. I'm sort of taking myself out of a situation. Whereas if I'm leaning forward, and I'm in a situation where I'm talking to someone, I'm a little bit ahead of myself. I'm in the future. Where am I going? What am I doing? There's this anxiety because I'm a little too far out. So what we're looking to do is, in the body, find a place where you're totally aligned, where you're in the moment. Make sense? Okay. Then what we want to do is we want to look at your width. So just put your arms out. A lot of us, this space of connecting in the room, if someone comes in and they take up a lot of space, right? A lot of ego, a lot of brass, and I'm here, right? Versus the someone who doesn't take up any space at all. They make themselves small, they're insignificant, they're narrow. I'm just gonna be here, stand quiet, and I'm gonna talk to people, but I'm not really significant. You see this happen in body language. What we wanna do is we wanna get connected to the natural width of you. So feeling left to right on your feet, so you're gonna try to find a space where you start to feel like you're totally on one foot, totally on the other foot, and then leaning front and back, kind of feeling the axis of gravity, so you're not too far. I'm not sitting here like this, right? I'm balanced on both feet, side to side, front to back. At the same time, feeling your head being pulled up to the ceiling. So there's this elongation. I'm not too far forward into the future. I'm not too far back, worried about what I did. I'm not too wide where I'm taking up more space, and I'm not too small, right? There's this balance that happens. You guys getting this? Looking good, by the way. Then what I want you to do is just put your hand right below your belly button. And just imagine that you're sitting right behind your belly button. So put all your awareness right behind your belly button. And then just gently rocking forward and back, side to side. Feel this space where you're totally aligned in gravity. And notice, as you're doing this, no one's really thinking about the rest of the day. You're not really worried about anything, are you? Just kind of in your body going, oh, okay. Relax your legs, relax your jaw. Let your shoulders drop. And just feel this space. And this is the space that we want to cultivate, where you're in the middle of your day, you get an email, ding, and it's a challenging email. You get reactive. And then you just, stimulus response, you spew back to that email. What if you get that email, and you center yourself, ground yourself, and then you respond the way that you want to respond. You respond from a place of grounding, not reactivity. You guys start to feel this space? Would this be useful for you if you were able to access this space whenever you wanted? Right? All you need to do, it's super simple. You're standing on the train or waiting for the train. Find your space connected to gravity. Where are you connected to gravity? Sit behind your belly button. Drop your shoulders. Take a deep breath, and there you are. All right? Cool, that's it. So now with any sort of technique, now we got it. Now it's about embodiment. Now we are what we practice. So some of my clients, what they do is before they get on a phone call, they do this for 8 seconds. Find space, get grounded, boom, they go on the call, but they actually come back into their body before they engage that person. And all of a sudden the person on the other line is like, hey, there's like connection here because I'm with you. I'm not thinking of something that I need to do or something that I just did. I'm actually just with you. And when we can do this, it's not a heady thing, it's a body thing. Okay? Cool, thank you. Awesome, are you?
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. So John actually now talked about embodiment to be a way of presence. And what I want to close with is the fact that the masculine, as I said, is the external, the visible, the dynamic force that gets us moving. And the feminine is that invisible hand that really moves us behind the scenes, the subconscious mind, what's in our body state, the bodily cues that we give out. And to actually integrate those two into your daily lives, both personal and professional, is something that I would encourage all of you to consider doing. I think that finding practices, they're all out there. And you're more than welcome to always reach out to me or John if you're interested in learning a little bit more about these embodied leadership practices. That would be great. Thank you for listening.